So we're at a particular point now in this substitution conversation, which again, I don't want to scare you, but these are harder problems. Once we finally get through this and you guys are doing some stuff on your own, you'll agree the substitution method is one of the harder methods, and it's the first one we jumped into. Of course, it's the chain rule backwards. But now we're at a point where we want to basically answer this little question: to substitute or not. One wise thinker asked to substitute or not. That is the question. Okay, so what I'm getting at is that you want to be able to look at a problem and you want to be able to realize, that's a substitution problem, or that's not a substitution problem. And this is exactly what this activity is going to do. That we'll spend most of the period letting you guys work on. Now you can jot these down. Maybe you just want to listen. We're gonna do them. So if you are jotting them down, you might want to give yourself space to do them. But the first thing I want to do is what I'm going to ask you to do in this activity, which is to just figure out which one's the substitution problem. It's actually important to figure out which one is actually just a basic problem. There's actually a problem up here that I could have put on your quiz just a couple days ago. So before we had the substitution method, we just had like a basic. And then there's one problem up here that we could try as hard as we want. We don't know how to do it yet. We'll learn how to do it next, like in the next section. Okay, now I've been saying this a few times because maybe the more I say it, you start to realize this is where it's at. It's choosing you. Now, choosing you is more about looking into the future and understanding du. When you choose you and you see the derivative of you, you're looking for a cancellation connection. Okay? I think it's pretty clear here that we have like three potential u's. It's like all the stuff that's on the insides. It's either 2x, it's either 3x squared, or x squared. So those are kind of like our insides. It's pretty easy to see the derivative of each of those. Okay, now look at this one carefully, because if you choose u to be 3x squared, which means you're trying to do the substitution method, the derivative of u seems to have a pretty nice connection to the rest of the problem. Okay, so the derivative of this u is going to cancel with this. What that means is that this one is the substitution problem. This is the substitution problem because we've got that derivative, that du cancellation connection. Now, we'll turn around and we'll do the problem in just a moment, but I'd like to kind of keep talking about like which one is which. And some people are going to think this way on this little activity I give you. If you choose that to be u, if you choose that one to be u, the derivative of 2x is simple. It's just a number. And in fact, if you look at what's out here, you discover that it too is just a number. Another way to say it is there's nothing that needs to cancel here. There's nothing that needs to cancel because this is actually just a k value. Remember how we learned that you can divide by k? Okay, that's all this is. It's actually a problem that you did on a quiz not too long ago. So do I need to use the substitution method? I like to say not really. Not really, because all you're going to need to really do is just divide by k. Now, sometimes kids will say, well, how do I know if I can just divide by k? It depends on what's on the inside. If it's just a regular x, then this is just a regular k. This one was more than just a regular x. It was an x squared. Okay, so keep it simple if you can. Now, the last one, as fittingly, I saved it for last. You can't do the substitution method because the derivative of x squared is going to drop back down to x, or 2x. And that's not going to cancel perfectly out here. In other words, the exponents don't match. All right, now remember, when I look at this x squared, what I'm really looking at is the derivative, which is just going to be x to the first power. And that's not going to cancel. That's not going to cancel with that 2x squared out there. So if these were the three problems that you had in your little group, for the first one, you would put a box around it, box for basic. Again, put a box around it, box for basic, or just do it. Just find the answer. And when I say just do it, I do literally mean that you can just follow the rule. The rule is that the coefficient comes along, so we have a 4. Okay, cosine turns into sine. Now, you still have 2x, but you have to divide by k. You have to divide by 2. So we end up with 4 sine of 2x divided by 2, otherwise known as 2 sine of 2x plus c. Now, if these were the problems that your group had, and you got to the second one, I'm going to ask you to either circle it, circle for substitution. Of course, they don't start with the same letter, but they do sound the same. Circle for substitution. Or do the substitution method, like actually just start doing it. But as we already discussed, u equaling 3x squared is where it's at, because the derivative, which is 6x dx, has a perfect match with the outside of the problem, or excuse me, the rest of the problem. If you want to use the substitution method kind of like a step by step, then you would divide both sides by 6x so that you could substitute box for box. So you could substitute and cancel. Of course, you're going to cancel the 6x that we see as the rest of the problem. Okay, now remember, although there's a good chance that someone at some point forgets to do this. It's just a common mistake as students are trying to learn calculus, but you have to actually do the antiderivative. We didn't really change the function. We just substituted the way it looks. But when I finally change sine into opposite cosine, well, now I did the antiderivative. So very, very important step to remember. And in case you forget to do that, you'll know when I say, hey, you forgot to do the antiderivative. Now it's going to be the opposite cosine of u, but u, as we've talked, is ready to substitute back to be 3x squared plus c. All right, and then the last problem, you can just leave it blank, or you can cross it out. I don't think I would scribble it out too hard, because in about a week, you'll be learning how to do that problem. And some students like to go back and actually do them, although I will be giving you plenty of problems to work on. But that problem, we don't actually know how to do it yet.